Om Sarvo Upanishad Gavo Dogda Gopala Nandana Parthavatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitamritam Mahat. All the Upanishads are like the cows. One who draws the milk from that is Gopala, that's Krishna. Partha, Arjuna, is the calf. People of purified intellect are the drinkers of the milk, and the milk itself is the supreme nectar called the Bhagavad Gita. We are on chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita called Sankhya Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. Verse 28. Avyaktadini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyaktam nidana neva tatra ka paridevana. The translation of the verse: all beings, O descendant of Bharata, that's Arjuna, remain unmanifested in their origin, manifested in their middle state, and once again become unmanifested in the end. What then is the point for your anguish? So this is, he has been constantly telling Arjuna, why do you weep? Why do you grieve? So we have two things here. Either we can look at it from the two stands, from the standpoint of individual souls or individual bodies or nature itself. I was on my way from San Francisco and I seen everybody around me reading books and this and that, and everybody is so busy with reading books. And they're looking at me, this guy does not read anything. No, I'm reading whatever they are not reading, I'm reading. I try to see the substructures in things. An airplane wing, on the wheel, and the plane, and the person, the substructures in the person, and everything in the sky and the land, everything. That's the way you read nature. People look on the surface and read a particular thing, okay. But you don't read those substructures which are of various levels. And that is why when we say that these things are just mere appearances, they come, the structures are important. If the structures are not present, then the manifestation will not happen. So that's the reason why they say that a person or anything around has a lot of levels which the person might not know about. And we are, as it were, just on the kind of a surface. Our life is merely on the surface. As we keep on plumbing our own depths, we see, my God, these things, manifestations are like waves. The sea is real. The waves come and they go. So this whole manifested bodies and minds and not only of individuals, but everything that nature has thrown out, everything has a beginning and an end. And if in the beginning it is unmanifest, at the end it is unmanifest, The Upanishads, mainly the Mandukya Upanishad, which is a kind of a gloss on that, saying then the middle also ought to be held as unreal, unmanifest. It's a kind of a dream. Why do we think that this is kind of real? Sri Ramakrishna gives an example. A person, he is seeing a kind of a nightmare, and he sees another person coming to kill him, and he screams in that dream. And as he screams, his dream snaps, he awakes, and then he finds in the dim light of the lamp, the door is locked, there is no one, it was just a dream. But he has begun sweating, his heart is palpitating, his fear. This is what is called body consciousness. We are conscious of one body, this body that we have acquired. And as a result, we can't get out of this, snap out of this. So these various arguments that the Lord has been giving Arjuna was just to snap that kind of bond which is really illusory. It doesn't really exist. He just say, this is mine and this is mine. And Sri Ramakrishna gives another example. A person had a son after a very long time. So the child grew up in knowledge and wisdom, and one fine day, as it always happens, the child passes away. The father was a kind of agriculturalist, a farmer. Word was sent. He returns to his house, and his wife says, "We, our only son, whom we love so much, has passed away. You're not even crying. What's happened to you?" So he's saying, you see, what happens is, last night I dreamt that I was father of 7 sons. 7. I was a king and I had 7 princes, and all those 7 princes grew up in knowledge and wisdom. And the dream broke. Whom should I weep for? For those 7? Or for this one child? For that person, the dream and the waking state had become one. So that is what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that Jnani Chasi, that is the farmer who was a kind of a Jnani. So whom do we cry for? Whom do we weep for? These things, these manifestations come and go. We need to hold on to what is real. So the whole of this nature comes from this undifferentiated or unmanifest. It comes space and fire and earth and air and water, everything comes out emerges out and returns to that. So these processes are going on and on. The Swami Vivekananda says, 1,000 years of forest, 1,000 years of city. These changes are going on. There was a mountain. Now there's no mountain. That mountain has shifted and gone, has become a delta. And slowly that delta, some island will emerge. These things are constantly going on in this world. Manifestation, non-manifestation. At times, even we go into a kind of a non-manifested state. That is, in sleep. We manifest, and then we again go back and become unmanifest. This whole universe becomes a kind of a circular rhythm of manifestation, non-manifestation. That's why in the Upanishad also, Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad, is saying, before this world was undifferentiated. It differentiated into name and form. So these are the arguments that Sri Krishna is giving. So in order for Arjuna's delusions to break, beings are all, O Bharata, unmanifested in their origin. Yes, unmanifested. And besides, what we see today is not what it was in the beginning. In the sense of things are constantly evolving, expanding, maturing, decaying, dying. And once again it comes up over and over and over and again. We've been playing this game and we have to get out of this game. Those, of course, who feel that is the time for them to give up this manifested world as real. If we study our own lives, we study even every thought that emerges, we find that everything is hollow. It's just noise in the middle, kind of fireworks. And we have this great fireworks, and then what happened? One day previously there were no fireworks, and suddenly you have fireworks and you shout and scream, and the next day there's no fireworks. And then what happens is, things are as it was. So, whenever we have this tendency to think too much of ourselves, or we are in too much of grief or misery, you must understand these are manifestations only, and they are not real. There is something also called the concept of drishti and srishti vad. That is, a person when sees something, creates. Our world is a world, our own world is a creation of our own minds. We're not talking about the external world. The external world has been created by the Supreme Being. He saw. Eko ham bhavisha. He saw. Let me be many. It's like, but our own worlds are created by our own minds. So we see this world, when there in our inner worlds, actually it does not synchronize with this external world. Most of the time, our inner worlds do not synchronize with the external world. And that's that conflict, that's that kind of friction that's always there. So, if we need to synchronize this inner and the outer world first, stop creating your own reality. Why? Because this reality that we are creating is based on partial knowledge. How much do we know? Take the element of time. What is time? We'll give a big discourse, but it's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. Take space. We might give a big discourse on space, and yet at the end of the discourse, we have not said anything. Because it is all partial knowledge. We have not seen the whole sequence of time or space or causation or whatever. We haven't even seen the whole sequence of our lives. When we talk and laugh and joke, all what we have done since we were born, it's all gone. We don't even take into account. And those who have seen us grow up, hey, keep quiet. I know what you were. And suddenly we get, as if I'm that young boy still. So this is how we need to slowly understand that everything starts from non-manifestation, gets manifested, and then returns back to that state of non-manifestation. All bodies, or you can see all the elements that comprise of this universe. The next 29, this is a very famous verse. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidenam, Ascharyavat vadati tataiva chanya, Ascharyavat chaina manya shrinoti, Shrutva pyenam vedana chaiva kaschid. It means one beholds the self as wonderful. Another mentions it as marvelous. Another again hears of that self as strange. Although hearing, yet another knows it not. So, this is Ashcharya, wonderful. One of our Swamis is saying, there was a kind of a English poet who says, the glory of the self as imprisoned splendor. It's so splendorous that we have not seen or heard anything like this before. When we see it, it transcends all our previous knowledge of the self, what we have heard about. Sri Ramakrishna says, when you read, you get one type of knowledge. When you listen to that somebody, you get a different type of knowledge. When you meditate, you get a different type of knowledge of the same thing. And when you realize it as it is, it transcends all these previous conceptions. The word here is Ashcharya. It is a kind of a reflection of what we find in the Upanishad, Kata Upanishad. So there it is said, Shravanayapi bahubiryo na labhya shunvantopi bahubiryam na vidyu Ashcharyavakta kuchalasya. See, many people hear about it, get a chance to hear. And there are many people who don't even get an opportunity to hear about this Atman. Though hearing continuously, many people do not even realize it. It's a reflection of the same here, meaning one beholds the self as wonderful. Why? What's wrong? What's there wonderful about it? See, this whole universe is a kind of a wonder. You look at even a biological cell, and you see the kind of wonder they manifested in that. Tremendous. Each cell is a kind of a wondrous thing. And the whole creation is so wonderful. And when you realize the self, it transcends all wonder. It transcends whatever you have thought about, whatever you have dreamt about, whatever you have meditated upon. Somehow it's just wonderful. So, why? As we have seen, this self, Esha Sarveshu Bhuteshu Gudo Atmana Prakasha, it remains as it were asleep in the cave of the heart. This self, which is in all beings, is not revealed to many. Why? Well, there was a time when many people did not even have the opportunity to listen to these kind of teachings. They were just bereft of. They were given certain teachings which were, this is good enough for you, not for others. Yeah. And Swami Vivekananda says, if our real nature is that Atman, why don't you tell the people that your real nature is of the Atman? Why hide this knowledge from them? This is doing a disservice, and not a disservice, it's an injustice. If you don't tell the people, you tell everybody that there's that Atman resplendent within you, which is beyond all wants and which is eternal and infinite. So, one beholds the self, the truth, as wonderful. So here it is, Ashcharya vat pashyati kasya. How does one see it? It takes discipline, obviously. You keep on listening to it, Shravana, keep on constantly listening about it, then thinking about it, and then meditating about it. There are things, seeing God with eyes open and this and that. You can see, but only after you have seen that God within, inside, through intense concentration. And when through that intense concentration one sees the self as the self, all bonds are broken. Then you can see that self manifested all over and within all. So this is, one sees that self as wonderful. Another mentions of it as marvelous. The word used is the same, Ashcharya. Now why is this Ashcharya? That's because, is it really true? Is this self immortal? Am I the self? Am I immortal? But there's a contradictory perception of me being mortal, of me being small, of me being shallow, of me being ignorant. How come? I see the teachings show me in a different light, but my actual perception is different. How come? He's saying, no, you are that Atman. But I'm feeling hungry and thirsty and sleep. All my experiences are contradictory to my real nature. That's the reason when somebody keeps on hearing about the glory of the Atman, wonderstruck. Oh, really? And it's just difficult for that person to keep on listening to it and digesting it. Oh, ultimately, I am that. Though right now, this non-knowledge or false knowledge is not giving me the perception of that real truth. I can't, simply. So that's the reason why I say another mentions of it as marvelous, wonderful. Oh, wonderful. Oh, you're not going to die. Oh, you children of immortal bliss. Swami Vivekananda says in the Parliament of Religion, saying the Hindu refuses to call you sinners. It's a standing libel on human nature. Sinners? What sinners? Vedanta does not recognize sin, it recognizes only error. We have, for just a fraction of a kind of a second, we have been diverted and we've got engaged with certain things. But that's not going to be permanently our nature. We are going to come out of it because the soul is infinite. And it will never stay deluded for long. So that is the reason why, it's wonderful. And the whole universe is like a drop in the ocean of this soul, this Atman. Yes, the whole universe appears very small before the glory of the soul. That is why, and the more we read about it, the more we listen about it, and we are struck with wonder. How is it possible? Yes, but that's the truth. Another mentions of it as marvelous. Another hears it again as wonderful. Here it's translated as strange. See, what happens is, in the Upanishad, Kathopanishad, Ashcharya Vakta Kushalasya Labdha. When the teacher is wonderful and the student is wonderful, or the receiver is wonderful, the teacher and the receiver is wonderful, wonderful is this knowledge that arises. This is what happens. What makes this teacher, wonderful, Ashtarya. That is, the teacher teaches from experience. Ananya Prokte, that is, that teacher does not teach it as different from himself or herself. When Sri Ramakrishna was asked by Swami Vivekananda, have you seen God? Oh yes. And he fell from the sky. He was looking around, asking people, have you seen God? Have you seen God? And he got various, half answers, and they tried to divert his attention, try to pacify him. When here you come to Sri Ramakrishna and says, yes, I have seen, and I'll show it to you. This is experience. And when the teacher teaches through experience, I will show it to you also. There we have a wonderful teacher and a wonderful student. He says, I see him, I see God more intensely than I see the world. There. So this universe appears as a kind of a pale reflection of that glory of the Lord. So this is how a person, we say, that one beholds the self as wonderful, another mentions of it as wonderful, another hears of it as wonderful, and there are some who, though hearing about it, do not understand it at all. And what is the prescription? You keep on persisting with this. The idea is, even in the Brahma Sutra is given, one can realize the self when it is thought, when the mind has been purified, when the intellect becomes steady. You can hear it and understand it. There are people who don't realize it or understand it on the first time, second time, 10. That's the reason why the Bhagavad Gita has been dwelling on this one theme over and over from different standpoints, so that somewhere a kind of a flash will emerge in the mind. The knowledge that the teacher gives does not flash in the mind, because certain obstructions, these obstructions have to be eradicated. And how do they have to be eradicated? Well, by constantly listening to the Atman, not anything separately. I need to proceed from point A to point B. What do? Think of point B. Simple. I keep on thinking and thinking and thinking. What happens is, you see, how do we know that is a self? Where exactly is a self? Nityam asmat prasiddham. That is, it is well known as the content of your consciousness in the sense of I. Now, in the sense of I, there is a subject as well as the object. So, the I sometimes becomes objective and sometimes subjective. Yes, it kind of reverses itself. The I is a subject, and I feel consciousness is an object. And everything around me, my mind is conscious, I'm conscious. And sometimes it reverses. And that content of this consciousness then is there. That is the self. Somehow we need to turn this tide. This has to be done gradually, through thinking, through listening, through satsang, through listening to this. And the Guru gives you a kind of a mantra and he's saying, you keep on repeating. Oh, is that the path to knowledge? Yes. You keep on repeating and repeating over and over and over and over. That knowledge of the self is hidden within. It's not just a kind of a sound. No. The Guru gives you knowledge encapsulated in a kind of a sound. You keep on repeating over and over and over again. It suffuses the mind. It pushes all that darkness out. And then there it reveals itself. This is the necessity that is meant for all mediocre aspirants. The highest aspirants don't need to go through this whole process. Of course, the scriptures say, oh, probably they have done it in their previous births, so they don't need to do it again. They just listen to Dawa that, and they get that instantaneous realization. Oh yes, so long I was thinking I am the body and the mind and I am the senses, and somebody tells me you are that reality, and my perception, the consciousness switches over. There, I've got it. And once you get it there, it never leaves you. It never. So, one beholds the self as wonderful. That's it. Wonderful. Swami Vivekananda says, no science, no scriptures, nothing, no teacher can explain to you the glory of the self that appears as humankind, or as man, he said. No scripture, no teacher, no science can ever describe the glory that appears as this mankind. So what are we actually seeing this? We are seeing something of a kind of a very dim reflection. There are layers and layers of darkness in the mind when we are seeing that Atman as through that layers of darkness. Somewhere those things have to be eradicated, have to go. Why is it that some people do not realize it immediately? The Lord will say in the 7th chapter that out of 1,000 people who are striving to know me, some will realize me. Saying Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kashya. So there are thousands and thousands of people. Out of them, few try to realize me. And out of those striving to realize me, few will realize me. In reality. Thank you. Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kashya Yatati Siddhaye Yatatam api siddhanam Kashyin mam vetti tatvata. So this is the law. We've seen in the game of Monopoly, everybody starts equally with all the everything. But as the game progresses, you'll find one guy is piling up all the money, and the other guy is. So what happens? Yeah, everybody starts equal, yes, but this person's industriousness, the risk-taking factors, all these things, whatever you say, draws all that resources towards himself. So similarly, when we keep on listening to this self, it's not going to happen in one time, because our minds are still covered with darkness. We need to do it repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over again. And as we can do it, then we will say, it's wonderful. Ashya, wonderful. It's wonderful. And it's not just that kind of simple wonder. Oh, it's so wonderful. One is staggered by what one experiences. And until unless one has a kind of a teacher who has taught you what you are supposed to or what you expect to realize, it simply break you. There was one Swami I know, I still know of course, that he says, you see, I wasn't prepared for this, my first realization. And the shock of that realization made me unconscious for 3 days. And then there are friends who were wondering what happened to him. He has not eaten for 3 days. So they came and saw me flat out, unconscious. And then they revived him. So he wasn't really expecting this kind of first, you can say. He's saying, I realized what has been said in the Upanishad, that this soul, Angushta Matra, Purusha, as the size of a thumb, luminous beyond all darkness, here in the cave of my heart. I was meditating and I got it. And then, no, that's the reason why, until and unless we are conditioned or we go through a kind of a conditioning, this thing will appear extremely wonderful, of course, wonderful, great, marvelous, and as I said, imprisoned splendor. Sri Ramakrishna says, Shiva, when he realizes the self, dances in ecstasy. When does one dance? When one has an excess of energy. When there's no energy, you don't dance, of course. Something that knowledge itself has given Shiva that kind of energy. And he dances in ecstasy, lost in himself. So this is how we need to understand. The knowledge of that reality, the Atman, will fill us with joy and bliss and energy, and we'll wonder, wow. Swami Vivekananda says, we will crush the stars into atoms. Kurmaschara tarvanam, tribhuvana utpataya. We will. Where does this person? Yes. Where does this person has that kind of strength to do all these things? Yes. The knower of the self can do it. There is nothing that's impossible. So when an ordinary person hears about this thing, oh, it's wonderful. Oh. So there's a great wonder within all of us that needs to be unearthed, to be thought about constantly, shravana, heard about, meditated about. And then as we keep on doing it, all the darkness will vanish by itself. There was one Swami, very simple Swami. All other Swamis were talking about this Atman, it's like this and it's like that. And he wasn't very learned, not in the scriptures and not in any other way. He wasn't, what is this Atman they are talking about? Atman, Brahman. So he was quite agitated. He goes to sleep. At night he sees a dream. His guru comes and says, what? This simple thing, you can't understand this? And his guru is showing, see, this is the Atman. And he shows a blinding form, bright and luminous and exceedingly, you can say, blissful. This is the Atman. And this is the non-Atman. This. And he shows a kind of a pale, shadowy reflection of that himself, that of the Swami. This is the Atman. This is the non-Atman. This is the 3 times. Have you understood this? Yeah. And in the dream itself, he snapped out of it, and then he was so ecstatic. And then in the morning, he rushes to his guru. His guru looks at him, and he looks at the guru. the Guru understands. Don't shout now about it because there are other people around. So that person was in a kind of a state of bliss constantly. Now I know this is the Atman, this is the non-Atman, this is the Atman, this is non-Atman. And he saw his own form as blissful, as luminous and shining there. So it was fixed in his mind permanently. This is what it is. So he got it to the grace of his Guru. See? His Guru comes and says, this is what it is. So when he heard it, it was kind of strange looking. The voice said, another, again, years of it, that Atman as strange. Kind of strange. But on his realization, he was filled with that great wonder. And this is what is it. It is the nature, it's the real nature of each and every one of us. Today or tomorrow, we will realize it in its actuality. We can't be so stupid as to not know it. So, but do we look stupid? No, of course. So, this is how non-knowledge is replaced with knowledge. It's always like that. And as we proceed slowly, we will find one day that great, you can say, realization. When all obstacles have gone, oh, we were that, we are that. Those contradictory perceptions that we have. I'm small, I'm tiny, I'm angry, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm this, I'm that, I'm born. All those things all disappear. And we will find that we have always been that Atman. The next verse is verse 30. Dehi nityam avadhyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam sochitum arhasi. Here he says, this, the indweller in the bodies of all is ever indestructible. It's translated as invulnerable. Oh Bharata, that is Arjuna. Therefore you should not grieve for any being. He's summing up various his arguments for this to dispel Arjuna's ignorance. So here he says, he's putting it. This, the indweller, Dehi, saying, in the bodies of all, Sarvani Bhutani, saying, is indestructible. Now when you know there is something which is indestructible in you, in all the beings, you should not grieve anymore. Why do you want to cry? Like even Swami Vivekananda quoting from the Avadhuta says, Kim nam rodeshi sake. Why do you weep, my friend? You have the infinite strength within you. Why do you weep? Why do you cry? Why do you become depressed? Why do you think that you are a small being under the laws of causation? Here he says, Dehi Nityam, the indwelling self is eternal and it cannot be killed even if the bodies are killed. So here you are indestructible, you are, let's say, eternal. And that's why tasmat na tvam sochit, you should not grieve. This is a message of hope. You see, even our subtle bodies and our causal bodies, we have three bodies, apart from the kind of three coverings to the soul, individual soul. So this is the body that we see around, that arises from food, and perishes and becomes food, goes back to the elements. We have a subtle body that is not subject to death. Keeps on and on and on and on and on. And takes up. Swami Vivekananda gives the example of a hurricane, a kind of a hurricane, or you can say whirlwind. A whirlwind lifts up some materials and drops them at a different point, lifts up some more materials and drops them at some other point. So this subtle body keeps on picking up bodies, dropping them when it's all exhausted, picking up some more material. So this is a subtle body that is there within us. And behind that subtle body is another called causal body. These bodies too do not die, they are dissipated on the dawn of knowledge. They are with us. So what we are seeing is only this body that comes and goes. So why should you weep about it? And when we look at ourselves as individual soul, as consciousness, there is no death for consciousness. It transcends every phenomenal, you can say, limitations. There's nothing that can hold us down. And we are that. So, in conclusion, here he says, this indweller in the bodies of all is indestructible. Oh Bharata, here we are. We have to meditate on this very thing. That which is within us is indestructible. We are not being trained to think of ourselves as eternal and indestructible. We have been told, everyone tells, you are stupid, you are a fool, you need to be taught, you need to be led, you need to be guided, you need to be chastised, you need to be spanked, and you are like that. Over and over and over and again, we have been given contrary knowledge. To bring this about, we have to peel back those layers. How do you do it? By constantly thinking now that I am that indestructible being which is there in my body, and that same being is in all bodies. This is how we slowly come out of this tunnel. This whole world keeps on telling you how weak you are, how incompetent you are. Okay, you still need. In our order, those who are senior, they look on their juniors as, oh, I seen him, he came yesterday. He's still a boy. Even if that guy is now 50 years old, he's still a boy. Hello. Of course, they do it out through affection. But this constantly belittling by others, and we also start believing that, and we constantly belittle ourselves. Oh, I cannot do this. Probably I don't know. So this delusion goes away, and what remains is this, that this Dehi. Dehi is in the sense of that which dwells in the Deha body. The body is meant for that soul. The soul is not meant for the body. This temple is meant for the worshippers. It's not meant for the dining hall or for that, you can say, library. So this is always called parartha, for something else. The body is meant for something else, not for itself. So for what is it meant for? For the one that dwells in. That's the reason why it's called the Dehin, that which possesses a body. So there are two separate things. Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of when the coconut has become ripe and dried. When you shake it, you'll see the kernel making a sound inside. That is, it has separated itself from that, you can say, rest of the things. So similarly, this body is there and the soul now is enmeshed with it. It has to get disengaged from that, and then it will find itself as separate from the body and the mind and the senses and the intellect. And then it will start growing and growing and growing and growing. And again, I said, you should not grieve. Therefore, you should not grieve. Don't grieve for yourself or for others. He's saying, the hero dies once, and a coward dies over and over and over and over again. Okay? So, that's the reason why he's saying you should not grieve. Every time we have dark thoughts, every time we have negative thoughts, we, as it were, killing ourselves. Yes, every time we hold ourselves and pull ourselves back, we are killing ourselves. And that's why it's called, in the Upanishad also, Ye ke chat mahano jana. These are the people who are called the suicides. They commit suicide. Why? Because they don't realize the self. They kill themselves. They are the killers of this. Why do they kill themselves? With their thoughts, the negative thoughts that constantly fills their minds and their thoughts. Break out. Come out of this small. So Swami Vivekananda gave a kind of illustration. He says, on the ascension of a new emperor in China, he pardoned all the prisoners, political prisoners. There was one prisoner who was in a dungeon, dark dungeon, for more than 50 years. And he was living with that vermin and the roaches and the darkness and the filth. So out of 50 years he was taken out and get out. And he couldn't stand the sunlight. He's saying, no, it'll kill me. You take me back. Put me back in the dungeon. Put me back. Saying, no, you are free. No, I don't want to be free. I want to go back to my vermin and the darkness and the stench and the dirt. Most of us are like that. We need to come out of this and say, enough of that. Can't we see this bright, warm sun that I'm in and you want to go back to your darkness? No. So, as we emerge out of our old shell, a shell of our own world that we've made, we emerge out and then we understand, what was I doing all this time? And then what happens is, you are filled with such joy and happiness, you would like to share that with others. Not only share, you would like to help them out also. That's a noble that. So you are not doing nothing. You will have plenty of work to do after that. It's called Loka Sangraha in this. People like Vivekananda or Shankaracharya or Ramakrishna, all this say. Why did they go about trying to teach people? They had the realization, they could have kept quiet. No, we like to go and tell people to come out of the sleep of Maya. And that's why it's called doing good to the world. This is the real doing good to the world. Not building another freeway, another airport or something like that. We've got enough of that. We'll stop here for today. We'll take this up next time. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.